Welcome to the Divorce Survival Guide podcast, where we have open and honest conversations about co-parenting, separation, divorce, and the hardest question of all, should you stay or should you go? I'm Kate Anthony, your divorce survival guide, and I'm here to help you navigate some of the roughest waters you've ever swum in and answer some of your toughest questions. I've been to hell and back. And now it's my mission in life to help you get to the other side of this process with your sanity and your heart intact. Hey everyone, welcome back. How's everyone doing? Man, it's been a doozy of a couple of weeks, hasn't it? And last week I really talked about it head on. Did a Facebook live stream over the weekend with my friends Susan Guthrie and Ben Heldfond and Dana Michelle, and that was amazing. And we're having these really hard conversations, but today I'm going to slightly depart from that for a couple of reasons. The first is that the timing of this episode actually coincides with the upcoming World Refugee Day, which is really not much of a departure from what's going on in the world right now. The support of and the love of all marginalized people in our country is, probably the most important thing that we can be talking about right now. And my guest this week is an incredible woman, an incredible human who has founded an amazing nonprofit that supports refugees as they resettle in the United States. And, as we've seen over the last couple of years, that has been a harrowing and horrible experience for many refugees. I mean, I think in the best of circumstances, in the best of political climates, resettling, moving your entire life to a different country must be terrifying and just such a scary experience. But then to come to the U.S. and be met with the hostilities that so many of the people who come here seeking shelter have been met with over the last few years, under this administration in particular, it's been awful. So my friend Miry, we were laughing about this today because Miry and I, Miry lives in my neighborhood, and I've known about her since she began her nonprofit, Miry's List, which she's going to tell you all about today. And I have always known about her. And then she moved in, basically next door to me. There's one other house between us. And I was kind of excited because I was like, oh my God, because she felt kind of a little famous to me in our neighborhood. And I was like, oh my God, maybe we're going to be friends. And then I found out when she moved into the house is because she had just gotten divorced. And I was like, oh, we're so going to be friends. And I went over to talk to her. And then in talking, I was like, will you be on my podcast? And she was like, absolutely. And so we recorded this. And after we recorded this, we became really good friends. So if you've been following my journey with the Eagle Rock Isolation Band, Miry is the one who started it by standing out on her front lawn in the very beginning of quarantine and just singing karaoke songs, basically. She's a karaoke queen in her non-quarantine life. And so then I joined her, and then a bunch of our other neighbors joined in the band, and now we are this, 7-person band, and we've gotten to know each other really well, and we've become really good friends. But this was recorded before any of that happened, so it's kind of exciting that we're sort of going this little back in time to a conversation that we had when we were just getting to know each other. So I just want to tell you a little bit about Miry. So Miry founded her nonprofit called Miry's List during a painful time in her marriage. The creation of this organization is one of the things that sort of lifted her up and out of her marriage. And the story is incredible about how she started to help just one family, one refugee family who had just arrived in the United States. And now she runs this incredible nonprofit, helping families resettling all across the U.S. And she's amazing. Her nonprofit is amazing, and her story is really inspiring. And I'm sharing it with you because I want you to see what's possible. I know this was something that was true for me, was that when I got myself involved in things outside of my marriage, and when I realized that people viewed me really differently from the way my husband viewed me or the way that I viewed myself inside my marriage, the way that I viewed myself and the way my husband viewed me inside my marriage became just like a real disconnect. So I was like out in the world and I was this one person and I was happy and powerful and was making a difference and making change and doing things. And then I would go home into my marriage and I would sort of have to shrink back down to get into it. And I was like, I don't want to be shrunken down. I don't want to be that. Right? I want more to be this better, bigger version of myself that these other people see in me and feed in me and foster in me, and that I can then turn around and do the same for myself, right? And so I think this story is really important in showing how just amazing we can be when we are not in the constraints of something that's holding us down and holding us back. So I'm going to shut up now and I'm going to bring you my interview with my dear, dear friend, Miry Whitehill, who runs the nonprofit called Miry's List. And, before I bring her to you, I do want to say that this is coming up in the next week or so. We have World Refugee Day. And because of that, we want to donate. We want to start sending money to organizations that are supporting our refugees. And this is a great time to do it. So there's a link in our bio to be able to support refugees through supporting Miry's List. And I encourage you to please donate. Literally every dollar matters. Everything counts, right? So if you can just give $5, give $5. You have no idea what that means to a refugee family. It's truly astonishing. So please check the link in the bio and be sure to give anything that you can to support our refugees coming into our country. Okay, and now here's Miry. Hi, Miry.
Hi, thanks for accepting me with bedhead today.
So we're recording in person. Mm-hmm. Miry and I are sitting in the same room, which has really only happened on one. I've only done this once before.
Ooh,
in this very room with my friend Deborah Rogers. So you're kind of special, Miry.
You never forget your second.
This is why I love you guys. This is why Miry's on the podcast today. She cracks my shit up.
We're neighbors.
We are neighbors. We live just 2 doors down. There's this massive, ugly apartment complex in between us.
Although it's full of beautiful people, the building could look a little nicer.
The building could look nicer.
But I do love the people that live in there.
Spoiler, Miry moved next door to me, or 2 doors down from me,
3 months ago.
3 months ago.
It's been 3 months.
Is that when you got divorced? When you split up? Or were you somewhere in between?
My divorce was final about, I want to say 2 months ago.
Oh, okay.
So, But yeah, it was just all around the same time. And I got so lucky to find that place.
God, you did.
And it was the second place I looked at. And there was a giraffe posted next to the window in the back to hold back the curtains on the window in the kitchen. And I saw that giraffe and I was just like, this is my house.
Yeah.
I need to live with that giraffe.
That's amazing.
And I just looked at the landlord and I was like, her name is Louise.
Louise, yeah.
And she,
family friend.
Single mom, raised her son in that house. And she walked her son to Eagle Rock Boulevard from that house as he got bigger. And I said, this is where I want to live with my kids. And I want to give you an application tonight. And within 2 days, she had like done a credit check. She talked to her friends at the church about me, and we like signed a deal. And then I became your neighbor. And I feel like the luckiest person on the planet to have found you and Louise and that apartment building full of heroes.
It's so great. It's so great. It's so great. Our neighborhood is really awesome. You run an organization called Miry's List. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what that is? By the way, I knew about Miry's List like for a couple of years before I actually met you. And I was like, who is this woman? She's amazing. And so then now I'm like, oh my God, she's even more amazing.
Well, I am the founder of a nonprofit organization called Miry's List, and we work with families who are resettling as refugees in the United States. It's a 3.5-year-old nonprofit, so we are a startup. We have grown really fast in the last 3.5 years, beginning with a almost spontaneous meeting with one family that led to a domino effect. And most of the families we serve come from Syria and Afghanistan, and most of them have kids under age 5. So we're dealing with mostly families.
Yeah. And so what do you do for them? What's the list? What's this list?
So the list in Miry's List is one of our 4 programs. Our flagship program is Wish Lists by Miry's List. And it's like a baby registry or a wedding registry, but for families who are starting over. They have fled persecution and violence. Often the families we serve are coming from neighborhoods and streets that have been changed significantly by violence. And some of those neighborhoods no longer exist. If you can even imagine what that would be like.
Right. And for our neighborhood, like for all that we were just talking about, for our neighborhood to suddenly be decimated.
Yep.
By violence and horrible.
There are, women I know who have survived that and have come here, have told me stories about sitting on the roof with their friends, having tea and cookies, and then a bomb falling out of the sky and turning a building next door into a crater.
Oh my God.
And that's the level of shift, and so quickly. That's what civil war looks like in Syria, and it's ongoing. And what we do, where we come in, is when families arrive here, what we want is that the refugee experience, which is often many years, and there's not a lot of informed consent in migration and in resettlement as refugees.
Say more about that. What is that? What do you mean by that?
Folks who are coming here, they're not necessarily leaving their home with the intent of never coming back.
Right.
And I think we don't really always think of it that way. And we think of refugees as these, with this label of these people didn't decide to be refugees. There was not consent in that. That was their life circumstance.
They were sitting on the roof having tea and a bomb dropped next door. Like that, they didn't ask for that.
No. Nobody wants this for their families. So many families have been separated because of this. And so when they get here, we want that experience, the refugee experience, to be over. And what we want is that their arrival to the United States is refuge has been found. And they can begin a resettlement experience. But if you can imagine just some of the emotions that would come up in coming to a new country, maybe being on a plane for the first time, you're with your spouse and your 5 kids, and then you're brought to a motel room with 2 beds in Glendale, and you're dropped off by a caseworker, and they give you a bag of groceries, and they say they'll be back soon. And what you really need at that moment might just be a working cell phone so you can call your mom and let her know that you arrived safely. That might be the thing that you need the most in that moment. And resettlement agencies and caseworkers, they are heroic, bless their hearts. They are not there to provide the level of emotional support, community support that people need when they're starting over in this position. And that's who we are. We are a community-based organization. We are not here as a resettlement agency that's funded by the federal government. That's not what we will ever become. We represent the neighbors. We're the ones knocking on the door, often of those motel rooms or a first apartment in America where a family might be living for a couple of weeks without basic supplies like beds. We knock on the door. We say, welcome to America. How can we help? And then we help with the things, people, and services to get them through. They're setting up their first home, so they have what they need to feel normal. And then through finding a community support system locally. And then ultimately, what we hope is that they find a sense of belonging here in their new life in America. So
which they can really only find through the community, right? Through community outreach and the welcoming arms of a new community.
We have all been new somewhere. We know what that feels like.
Yeah, right.
The phases of our program are survive, hive, and thrive. And we find that describing them in that way not just helps us kind of visualize where we're at, but like it also really aligns with the experience for families. Being in survival mode, we all know what that feels like. Feeling like you can't make a choice. Feeling like your life is out of your hands. Hive, that second phase, is the surrounding. You get surrounded by a support system, and that's ultimately where you can build your strength. And then thrive, that is when you have your needs met. And at that point, often what people are doing is they're looking out their window or opening their door and wondering if maybe their neighbor needs help. And that's actually one of the best ways to tell if a family has reached that point. And it's when they're reaching out to us and they're asking if they can volunteer for Miry's List as an interpreter or on our welcoming team. You know, most of the staff of Miry's List are folks who have graduated from the program.
Which is so cool. Which I just think is so cool. They're so grateful for it, right? That they want to give back and they want to give back to others. And that's right. That is the full circle effect that you're after.
I think that it can be very healing to be able to improve the experience for somebody else who's maybe going through something that you can relate to.
Yeah.
And I'm just constantly inspired by the people that I work with. We're like the United Nations. It's incredible.
You are.
Yeah,
it's
amazing. I have the best team.
Okay. And so let's rewind a minute. And because I want to get back to Miry's List, but I want to know how you started this. Like what was the impetus for this and the ripple effect that it had in your own life?
So, as I mentioned, Miry's List is a 3.5-year-old organization, and I have 2 kids. They are 4 and 7. So, what that means is that
super cute, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, your new neighbors.
I love these
We do
kids.
a lot of nude gardening in the front yard. Front yard,
which is looking really good, by the way. And I asked them if they asked her kids if they would come over and start work on mine.
Yes, yeah, actually, yeah. We put in a rainbow garden last week. You can check that out.
Okay,
it's coming in. When Miry's List began, my kids were 5 months old and 3.5. So I was with basically a newborn and a toddler. I was the primary person looking after them. At the time I was married to their father. I was at that point pretty sure in what I thought was postpartum depression. And my marriage was always, it was rough from the start. Literally from the wedding night was challenging. But after I had my second kid, it went from challenging to truly, it was traumatic. And I felt so abandoned by the person who was supposed to be my person.
Right.
And the loss at that point when I was just, so vulnerable. I remember being in the hospital with my 1-day-old baby and I was waiting for their dad to pick me up from the hospital to take me home. And I was just looking at the baby, and I was like, he didn't have a name yet. We're Jewish, so we only name on the 8th day.
Right.
And I said to myself and this baby boy in my mind, I said, I'm not going to leave the hospital unless I feel safe and emotionally safe also to do that. And I'm going to stay here until I get that. And if there's anything besides that, I'm not going to leave. I mean, it was hard for me for many years to be in a hospital because just being in a hospital would take me back to that time. And I remember visiting years later, visiting a friend who had just had a baby, and like she was there with her wife, and they were just so in love with their baby and each other. And like, of course they were together because like in their relationship, why would you leave the hospital?
Why would you ever not be there? Except you're like getting the car seat installed or some shit, right? Like, why?
I was just a mess. I had tears streaming down my face, and I told them that it was because I was so happy for them. But I needed love in my life so deeply at that time, and I just didn't have it. And that was the place.
Same.
So many people that I have met since that time can relate to what it's like. And at the time I felt so alone. I also felt so sure that I had to stay married to that person until my kids were at least 18.
Right.
And I was trying so hard to be the wife that I was told that I needed
supposed to be, right?
So I could be good enough. And it was so much work. And when I look back, I'm like, being a mom and being with my babies was the easy part of that time because it came so naturally. And like, I feel really fortunate that came naturally to me because I know that many women do not find that stuff comes naturally. I'm talking feeding the baby, waking up with like, I don't know how, like, I'm so lucky that I got 2 kids that I just could bond with so deeply.
You are. I did not. Well, my lack of bonding was a postpartum depression issue, like serious postpartum depression and a colicky baby. And so there was so much trauma around the birth, also, emergency C-section and all of that. And then also not feeling like I had a supportive partner. Although I will say that my ex he was good in infancy.
That's good.
He was very good in that, but he was not an emotional support to me ever. Yeah. Except actually the opposite. So
that time revealed to me a lot of things. It took many years for me to really understand what was lost at that time. Yeah. Because only once I began to understand my loss at that time, I began to understand like why I was hurting so bad. And then it was July 2016. I was standing in my kitchen and Sabo was in his jumperoo in the room with me, and Ruben was playing with Duplos in the next room. And my neighbor, Suzanne Smith, called me, and the Bare Necessities came on, and I was looking for my phone. And she said, Miry, I just met this family that moved here from Syria as refugees. They live in Azusa, and they have a 7-month-old baby boy, and they need somewhere to put him. He's been in their arms this whole time, and they're tired. And they want to put him down. Do you have an extra bouncy chair? One of those, like, exerciser things? And I'm just, like, staring at Sabo, and he's in his jumper. And I was just like, Suzanne, I have one, but I can't give her mine because I need mine to survive.
Yeah.
But I'm going to help you. I'm going to help her. Yeah. Let me ask the moms. And I posted on the Eagle Rock Moms Facebook group asking if anybody had a jumperoo that they were done with. And within 10 minutes, one of the moms responded saying that her son had just stopped using his. Come on by, pick it up. And that weekend, I went to visit this family with Suzanne, and she brought diapers and wipes, and I brought my neighbor's jumperoo. And I was so kind of like, excited about this like mini mission that I had. And like, keep in mind, like I was at the time in a deep sense of my own survival mode. Like
Right.
I was struggling deeply and I was at the end of my marriage. I did not know it yet.
Right.
So I enter this house and I have like laser focus on getting this baby in this jumperoo. So I like kick off my shoes. I'm scanning the room, looking for an empty corner. I remember thinking, oh, that's weird. All the corners are empty. I'm going to pick this one. This one's next to the window. The light will come in. It'll be warm. So I'm setting up the jumperoo and it's like super complicated because there's like a million parts and I'm like clicking it all together and you know, I'm in a stranger's home and they're just looking at me. They're like, what is she doing?
What is this thing? What is this contraption?
Squeaking and like, what's the bouncing? And I get it set up and I like turn around and I'm looking for the baby. And then I see him and he's in his mom's arms. And then I'm walking towards her and like, I'm looking at her face and I'm like, she's like my age, maybe even younger than me. And it was just like, I remember thinking that when looking at her and being kind of surprised by that. I just had assumed that she was older and then
we have this idea of refugees as being older people, right? Is that
why
like,
is that?
Isn't that, yeah, right? Is that what you were,
I was surprised. I kind of imagined her to be just like an older, old-fashioned lady. She was wearing a hijab, but she was like young and beautiful and she was talking to me with her eyes because like we didn't share a language. She speaks Arabic, I speak English. And then like without consent, I take her baby from her arms. We basically had eye contact and I, you know, with this agreement only through our eyes, I take the baby and I walk over to the jumperoo and I could tell there was so much awkwardness in that moment, but I was just like, I'm going to ignore it. I'm just going to do the thing. And I put the baby in the jumperoo and then I like slowly back away. See what's going to happen. And then me and Suzanne and this mom and dad from Syria, and they have 5-year-old twin girls who are there with us standing.
Oh my God.
We're all just like in this circle watching this baby explore this new piece of gear for the first time. And it was like so uniting because first of all, I had like just watched Sabo do that like a couple weeks earlier.
right.
And so I was just like, there's something so peaceful right now in the room about watching this baby boy from Syria learning how to use his jumperoo, and he started bouncing. He could feel his toes on the ground, and he hit one of the lights, and some music played. And then when he started laughing, all of us started laughing. And it just like had this tremendous ice-breaking moment. And then we just kind of sat down there on the floor and mom went to the kitchen. She brought some food. There was like fruit and some cereal and they didn't have very much, but she made the most delicious tea I had ever tasted in my life. And I'm just sitting there looking around and I don't understand what they're saying to each other, but we're watching the kids and we're having this like awkward eye contact conversation. And I'm seeing the way that this mom and dad are looking at each other. And something about being there in their home made me feel really uncomfortable at that moment. And I was like, I have to excuse myself to go to the bathroom. And so I did. I walked to the bathroom and I remember just like looking at myself in the mirror and having a panic attack. And I was like, how come this house feels so fucking safe to me? And like, why do I feel so jealous of these people who are strangers because of what they have with their family? Like, I felt more love in the 10 minutes that I was sitting on the floor of their empty apartment with their family than I felt in my own home because it was just me and my kids. We were alone. And then I just had this other really shitty voice in my head being like, oh, look at you. Oh, poor me. Oh, I'm so sad. Like, oh, I should feel worse for myself than refugees who are literally in the next room. And here I am alone feeling sorry for myself. What right do I have They have it so much worse than me. I'm going to go home to my nice house on my nice street and put my feet up on my bed and nurse my baby.
Mm-hmm.
And like, they don't have a kitchen table.
Right.
They need bedding. Like, they don't have garbage bags in their kitchen right now.
Mm.
It was a lot of feelings in that tiny fucking bathroom. And then I'm just like, subconsciously, I'm just like washing my hands. I didn't have to go to the bathroom. I never went to the bathroom. But I'm standing there, so I'm like washing my hands, and I realize that like, I need to dry my hands. And then I like turn around, and there's the towel bar, but there's no towel. And I'm like, that's weird. Like, where's the towel? And I'm like looking around, and I'm like, why aren't there towels in this bathroom? And then I'm just like wiping my hands on my pants, and I'm like, I need to know what's going on in here. And I'm like, open the shower door, and there's not soap, there's no shampoo, there's no bubble bath, there's no, I'm like, what's going on here? I look under the sink, there's no supplies. There's no toothbrushes next to the sink.
Oh my God.
I'm like, this family has been living in this house for 3 weeks.
Oh my God.
Where is their stuff? I mean, this is like me in the bathroom for 5 minutes. So then I'm like
snooping around.
but this, yeah, I'm like, and so like, suddenly I'm like in this completely other headspace where like me having a panic attack and like shaming myself, like, is suddenly like just booted out of my mind because I'm like on this mission now. I'm like, what are they really missing? How much more do they need besides that jumperoo?
Right.
I mean, that was the moment that it shifted for me. And then I walked out of that bathroom, and with their permission, I called my friend who speaks Arabic, and on FaceTime, he was our interpreter.
Mm-hmm.
And he convinced them to be real with me and to walk me around their house and go room by room, drawer by drawer, and make a list of the things that they needed to make their house into a functional home for their family. And I just wrote it down as a list.
Mm-hmm.
That's the list.
That's the list.
Actually, I brought a picture of the list for you that you can.
Oh, good. We can put on.
This is it. This is the first list.
That's the first list. We're
That's
going to
for
put
you.
this on. Oh, I can keep this?
That's for you.
Oh, goody. And we're going to put this on the. Oh, man. We're going to put this on in the show notes because this is amazing.
And it was just
And I love with the thing,
things.
it has things being crossed off.
Yeah, because that was the original list.
That's amazing. Okay.
And I went home, and at the time we were on a single income, and like we were hardly making ends meet. We were living off savings, and while I wanted to buy everything on that list for them, that would be seriously irresponsible.
Right.
And so I went to Facebook and I posted the list, and I said, does anybody want to help me to get these things for this family? And that is when it went from me wanting to help with my friend Suzanne to me, my friend Suzanne, and like a whole bunch of our neighbors and friends.
Mm-hmm.
And within 2 weeks, everything had been donated. And I was just going to their house every other day with my kids, and they would play, and we would go through donations and eat food. And I began a deep love affair with Syrian food. And we're very happy together. All these years later, every time is like the first time truly with Syrian cuisine and me. But my life has changed significantly since then, but that was the beginning stages of Miry's List. And today we're a fully fledged nonprofit organization with 501c3. And we have helped over 350 families from places like Syria, Afghanistan, Iran, and Iraq get the things that they need when they are starting their first home in America.
It is just, it's the most simple and obvious solution. And yet it's so profound, right? It's so profound. And it had a profound effect on you and your marriage. And it sort of, Miry's List sort of ushered you out of your marriage, right?
Miry's List helped me grow a pair because I'll tell you how it was for me. Before meeting that family, the person I saw myself as was the person who my ex-husband saw me as. And it was really, really hard to feel like that person, because that person was not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what that person did, it was a lose-lose.
Yeah.
And
I know that. I know that.
You
feeling.
know what that feels like.
I know that. Yeah, I do. That's exactly who I was too.
Ultimately, I was able to start some volunteer work in my neighborhood. I joined the neighborhood council, started meeting people just outside, the small circle of friends that I had that also knew my ex. And, Suzanne was a fellow board member. Like, that's how I know Suzanne.
Right.
She introduced me to that first family. And then suddenly I was meeting dozens of neighbors and friends. They were literally showing up at my door with
supplies.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was all like these like-minded people, like people who wanted to help, other helpers. The thing that became the medicine was like every time somebody would bring something to my house, or every time I would deliver something to one of those families, they would just give me so much gratitude for helping them get the opportunity to be in the situation that they were in.
Yeah.
I didn't donate the stuff. All I did was I made it accessible for people to do that.
Right.
And I became the receiver of a shitload of gratitude daily.
And love, I imagine.
A lot.
Right. A lot of love.
I remember in the beginning, there was like 7 families at that point. At that point, I was waking up every single morning with anywhere from 75 to 100 unread text messages that were mostly grateful hands emojis, pictures of babies in beds, kids in new shoes with bikes. These are how you can communicate when you don't share a language with someone.
Right. Yeah.
And I just kept waking up to that instead of what I used to wake up to. And while also at that time we began sleeping separately in separate rooms. And I thought that sleeping separately would mean I would feel lonely. Mm-hmm. But suddenly it occurred to me that I had never felt so loved. And I had my own space for that love. That's when things started really changing for me. Gratitude became the medicine that helped me. I decided one day, I'm just like looking through these text messages, and some of them just so expressive and creative in the way they were expressing their gratitude and love in another language. I just seeing someone work so hard to show you and tell you that they love you. It filled a void in me, a deep void that was lost a long, long time ago. And I thought, what if today I decide that I am going to see myself the way that the world sees me, and not the way one person sees me? And I just decided that that was how I was going to live. And what I did next was I took thank you notes that people wrote me, and I put them up on every wall of my house. And I took the stories that I was lived experience and just people I was meeting. I just, wanted to share and express that love to as many people as possible. And I leaned into that so hard. And that's what led to the development of Miry's List. But also it's what led to the development of me growing a pair and taking back control of my life. And, the thing that froze me for so long was my kids. How could I put my children through being in a split life,
right? Or
not having access to both parents, and, all of the shame and, that comes along with divorce. And it occurred to me one day that you know, all this time I had been seeing divorce as this failure.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, actually, wasting my life in a loveless marriage would be a failure.
God, yes.
And that's what is happening right now. And so in that way, I'm already living my worst nightmare.
Right. Right.
And so I've already failed. And so what I can decide to do right now, and if that is to get a divorce and to leave that would actually be the success.
Amen, sister. Amen. That's what so many women struggle with. So many, I mean, listen, if y'all listening to this need to stop, rewind, hit the back 30 seconds and listen to that again, because that is the 100% truth.
Yeah.
100% truth. And what your children were growing up to believe is marriage was going to be so fucked up and upside down.
Yeah.
Right? And you stopped it in its tracks, not just for yourself, but for your kids.
That it took me a long time to get there.
Yeah.
And I think that there's also like a lot of people can probably relate to like the amount of time that we take to get there is another way that we shame ourselves. We're like, oh, it took too long. You shoulda, woulda, coulda. Like I had a therapist one time who would say, don't should all over yourself.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Like you have to try as hard as you can. You have to do as many things as you can. You have to let yourself go through your own wave. And then ultimately, like, getting there is what counts. And it's like truly never too late to get there.
No.
Yeah.
Truly. I mean, it's such a beautiful story that, like, as you're telling it, and first of all, you're a beautiful storyteller. So as you're telling the story, like, I almost see the movie. So now we have to write the movie of Miry's List, which I'm very excited about, by the way. I've just decided.
So who will play
Miry? To be determined.
And who will play Sheila?
Well, let's introduce Sheila. We haven't introduced Sheila yet.
Sheila, the love of my life.
The love of your life, your person. Yeah. And you know what I love? I love that the other night when you reintroduced me to Sheila, you introduced her as like, you're like, have you met my person? And I was like, I love the idea of that. Not just because I was on Grey's Anatomy, so like, you know, that was in my time when that was coined. But the person, you know, because what you said was you actually used the same phrase about your ex, about that he wasn't your person, like you didn't have that person, and then I know as soon as you said that, I can't remember exactly what you said, but it immediately called to mind how you introduced Sheila the other night as your person.
Yeah.
And how adorably in love you two are. Like, it's so cute. I love it.
I have just felt that way from the moment I met her.
Oh my God. Where'd you guys meet?
She took more time than I did to catch up to that. But
she?
I felt like that from the moment I met her, yeah.
Where did you guys meet?
We met at a party.
Uh-huh.
Like a couple of years ago. She was bartending at this party, and it was a mom's club party, actually. Yeah. And I showed up real sweaty and late. Because that's my new life. Sweaty and late.
Sweaty and late.
That's this chapter.
Sweaty and late. That's what we're going to call it in the book.
In the book, yeah.
In the memoir.
Totally. So the reason why I was sweaty is because I was hauling t-shirts, because the Moms Club is like the heart of Miry's List. So I had to bring Miry's List t-shirts for all the moms.
Oh, I love it.
So like 100 t-shirts later, I'm sweaty and I'm late because I had been on a Tinder date with a dude that day. And it obviously wasn't a good date because I was there at the party.
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah.
And I come into this party. It was in the backyard, and the bar is like across the party, and I just saw her, and it was like one of those moments where like the whole party stopped and like I could only see her, and it was truly like I needed to know who that person is. And I noticed that she was pouring rosé. And so I proceeded to walk around the party and grill anyone drinking rosé about what their experience was with the bartender.
No way! ever went up to her?
Before I went up to her, yeah.
Oh my God.
And
what were people saying? They're like,
she's totally cute. We think that she might be dating somebody. Everyone had different like pieces of information. And I was like, all right, I got to go find out for myself.
Okay.
So I walk up to her at the bar and I look at her and I say, who are you? I didn't like plan on what to say, but that was the only thing that could come out of my mouth. And then she was like, I'm Sheila. Who are you?
Why are you talking to me?
She's like, what do you want to drink?
You've been in a relationship with her for like 20 minutes as you've gone around the party, and she's just like,
how do you
what
not
are you,
know?
what are you talking? You want a drink? Get some rosé.
And that night, I asked her where she lives, and she said she lives in Highland Park, that she had just moved there. And I said, oh my gosh, you're my neighbor. I live in Eagle Rock. So you should give me your number because I will bring you hummus because that's what I do for my neighbors. Oh, by the way, Kate, you're going to get hummus too.
I didn't get any hummus.
And so she had just moved to Highland Park and like she just genuinely was trying to meet friends and like I got her phone number that night and I quickly learned the first time we got together, like all this time I'm like, oh, she's so cute. Like I'm really into her. She doesn't know that though. And she doesn't feel that way about me, but I don't know that.
You're like some mom from,
she's like
the mom's group.
I hope she would see me as cool mom, but totally. I don't know that. I don't know that yet.
Yeah. Right.
So then we like get together for a drink that I totally think is a date. And then we get there. We sit down with our drinks. The first question I ask is, are you seeing anyone?
Uh-huh.
She goes, yes. And I'm like, are you monogamous? She's like, yes. And that's the second that it occurred to me that she friend zoned me when the minute we met and that I also either needed to friend zone her or we could, it wasn't going to work.
Out. Oh my God.
And we just like sat there and I was so disappointed in that moment because I was just like, I thought she was like someone I really wanted to date, but then she just wasn't available. So, but then ultimately after that night, I just like really thought about it and I was like, I am friends with plenty of beautiful, intelligent, brilliant women.
Uh-huh.
I can be friends with her. Like, I don't need to like sleep with someone just because they're like someone
Which she is, by the way. She's really beautiful.
I just love her so much. But and so I friend zoned her.
Mm-hmm.
And like we became really good friends. Yeah. And like that included like, just like I got to meet some of the people in her life and she got to meet my old blind dog and my kids. And then like, I don't know, maybe it was like 6 months later or something like that. We were out and I asked her, hey, how's it going with your girlfriend? And she was like, oh, we actually broke up a few weeks ago. And I was just like, huh. And I could tell that she was like genuinely sad. And so I wasn't like.
Yeah, kind of jump on that.
No, I wasn't. And also like, at that point we were like friends for so long. And I was like, I really cherish this friendship. Like
right.
I'm a single mom. Like I don't have a lot of time for extracurricular friendships. And this was one that like, I really enjoyed. I just like opened up to her about all my shit. Like I was newly dating out of my marriage and I was just like having all of these Tinder adventures. And she was just somebody that I could just, be myself around. She never judged me. She knew about Miry's list and she was just like, she was one of the few people that could hold space for both sides of me that were like exploding at this one moment.
Right.
And, ultimately I decided to, de-friend zone her.
And how did that, obviously that worked out well. I'm like, obviously that worked out really well for you. I'm just wondering how that.
I basically just let her know how I feel. After that day that she told me that she and her girlfriend had broken up, I wanted to go home, but then I was like, I can't go home. I have to like be out right now. I was just feeling so anxious. Mm-hmm. And I went to my best friend's house, Cindy, the one who just ran for city council.
Yeah.
And she and her husband, Clint, just heard me out. I just told them everything. I was just like, I really, really like her. And also she like, we have this great friendship. I don't want to risk that. And da-da-da-da. And they helped me to grow a pair once again. And to be real and to just tell her how I feel and to,
Right.
and to express that to her in a way that like didn't put her on the spot,
Right.
but also owned how I feel about her. So
Yes.
I wrote her an epic text message that she received while she was like out with her friends, like roller skating. And she and I that night went to have a drink, and we, I got to, tell her how I felt, and she made it really safe for me to do that. And, I've just been able to feel that love with her, like every single fucking day since then. And it took me a while, but I'm so lucky. And like, I would, I think about, once in a while, like, if my choices would have been different, like how would my life have been different? And like, I'm so glad that I made room for this in my life, because if I had met her really at any other time, like I wouldn't have been ready. I wouldn't have had space in my life for this kind of love. And like, it's the kind of love that I always wanted, that I was never in a million years gonna be getting in my marriage. And like to truly be seen and to feel that love and to be able to express yourself in a really safe way. And that is something that has been so game changing for me. And also just the rest of my life that has been able to reverberate in so many other areas.
Of course, right? Because you go from a woman who's, in a marriage that you feel there's no love and there's no support. And it's almost like the image that I got when you were talking about it is that you just sort of kept like moving these impediments out of the way, right? Yeah. To be able to sort of clear the channel for love that is not just from another person, but it's within you, right? It's this reciprocal energy that you can't fully express or lean into or experience with all of these fucking impediments in the way. And so many of the impediments were sort of your own construction, right? That idea that you didn't belong, that you didn't believe, that you didn't feel worthy, that you didn't, right? All of those things that you felt in your marriage, that I think we come to our marriages so often, we come with it, right? We are receptacles for that. We walk into these marriages, these emotionally abusive, emotionally abandoning marriages, because we're natural receptacles for that, right?
Yeah.
And so I just love the idea that you were able to, like, your story is, I mean, it's so beautiful. It's so inspiring. And I want my listeners to really hear this as a possibility. So often we hear these stories as other. And I always want to remind people that, like, this is my story. This is your story. This is everybody's story. The possibilities of this story are open for everybody and anybody.
Yeah.
Right. To be able to clear the channels for that open reciprocation of love, that flow of love.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm saying it well. You
are saying it beautifully.
Okay. So we only have a few minutes left, but I want to talk briefly about money, because you were a stay-at-home mom.
Yes. That was very challenging as well. Also, just to make the decision to leave as the person who's not earning the family's income was very, very scary.
Yes. And a lot of my listeners and a lot of my followers deal with this. So I'm super excited that we're going to talk about this briefly.
So the founding of Miry's List meant that for the first year and a half, I was a full-time volunteer. And then starting in about November 2018, I was able to pay myself and 4 other people a small salary because we were able to get enough donations from our incredible supporters all over the country. And it was not enough for me to support myself off of, though. And it still is not. I make $31,200 a year.
In Los Angeles, by the way.
We have a flat compensation structure at Miry's List. It's what all of our full-time staff make. The way that I am making ends meet is by speaking. I speak at colleges and schools, and I have done a TED Talk, and this is all new to me. I get to talk about my work, which is my favorite thing to talk about, and it's a subject that people want to know more about.
Yeah.
And so I have been able to supplement my income just by having like honorariums and speaker fees. Also, I have a book coming out.
Oh, you do?
I do. And so speaking and writing has been something that I've been leaning into to supplement my income, because getting divorced is hard and expensive. And however, like by relying on the public support system, I was able to get health insurance for my kids through Medi-Cal for families. Yes.
That's your hive.
That's what it's there for. Medi-Cal for families covers health insurance for anyone 18 and under in California, regardless of income. I didn't make enough to overqualify, but it's regardless of income, anyone under 18. So if you're worried about losing your kids' health insurance, know that there is a public option for you in Los Angeles County. Look into Medi-Cal for families, and whether or not you are getting a divorce, like you don't need to be paying for your kids' health insurance. It's going to be covered by the county.
Do you know, because my audience is all over the country, I wonder if there are similar programs in other states. Yeah. There probably are, right?
Please Google the local resources to help you get through this, because there is no shame in being on public support. And also, think about, I'm working with resettling refugee families who are also on public support. And here I am trying to convince them that they are just as welcome and equal to be here as I am. And so how can I say that and also say that there's any shame for me to be on public support?
Right.
And so that has actually been very, very helpful in just having me just live internally with a sense of equity.
Yep.
Equity for all. Just because you live in the house you live in doesn't mean that you aren't qualified for the help that we all need to get through transformational times in our lives. And lean into that.
Yep.
That's part of the hive, like you said.
Dude, I was on it. I mean, here I am running my own business as a divorced mom, living in a beautiful house in Los Angeles and in Eagle Rock on the, when I moved into my house 10 years ago, it was the wrong side of the tracks. It was scary.
But then you moved there and
then it all changed. But our block was like not so nice when I moved there. And there were times when I had to be, as I was building this business and I was on public assistance. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I did have a lot of shame about it. Yeah.
We don't have to have shame about that. Yeah. There is no shame in that. That's what it is there for. And that includes the support through your kid's public school. Your kid can be on reduced cost lunch.
Right.
You do not need to avoid that kind of help because you are a different kind of person in your own mind than somebody who needs it more.
Right.
You need it too.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes. Okay.
That's what I have to say about money. And I am not there yet, and I'm continuously working at it. And so if somebody's listening to this and you work at a university or a big company who brings in guest speakers, hit me up. I want to come and talk about refugee resettlement to your hive. And I can't wait to meet you.
So great. And because we were talking about it, right? Your speaking is your side gig.
That's my side hustle, yeah.
That's your side hustle, but we all have them, right? While I was building this business, building websites was my side hustle.
Yeah.
And that's like, this is what, it was only very recently that I was able to stop taking on web clients.
Yeah.
Right? We all have our side hustles.
Can I give a warning?
Yes.
Of what to avoid?
Yes.
Please, mamas and papas
I hope I know what you're going to say. Yes.
Please avoid pyramid schemes.
That's what I was hoping you were going to say.
Because they are predatory.
Well, please avoid, let's be specific, MLMs.
Yes. They're predatory, and they're specifically focused on finding folks who are in vulnerable times in their lives, like single moms, like people who are physically disabled, like people who have new babies or are in an insular community. They are predatory, and you are more likely to lose money.
Yes.
So do have side hustles. However, please be aware that MLMs are not the place that is going to take care of you.
It's so important. I think MLMs are so, they talk about and they preach and they make you believe that you're building a business, but
and it's empowerment.
Empowerment. What you're doing is building someone else's business, and you can take all of that
all the energy
and it could be for you. I'm so glad that we're on the same page about that, but of course we are.
And if you are currently involved in one of those and you're thinking about getting out and you feel any kind of like shame or sense of loss, like know that you are a victim of the situation that you're in, and the entire system was designed to bring you in. So you can walk away shame-free knowing that you are just as worthy and you deserve your own business that's truly yours.
Yeah. I actually have a client who is working on a business to help people transition out of MLMs.
Ooh, like that is ex-MLM coach.
Yes.
Oh my gosh,
that's what she's,
I
hope she's doing that because she was thinking about it for a while. And if she is, I'll link that in the show notes too, because I think that's helpful.
I'm glad we talked about all these important issues.
I am too, Miry. I'm so happy that you came on and talked to my audience about all of this. I think it's just so important. I love Miry's List. I love what you're doing. My plan is, as you know, to get more involved, because I was a little behind the curve because I wasn't in the Eagle Rock Moms group. I'm not in that one. I'm in
You're in the second wave.
I'm in the AVM, or I'm in the,
And, I guess if people who are listening want to know how they can help.
Yes, they do.
I would say the first thing to do is go on our website, sign up for our newsletter, because we send out a newsletter every other week. I write it personally, and I'm going to update you on what's going on for refugees this week. And then also we're going to give you, it's called Hive Around 5. We provide the list for 5 families. It's all online. You send a gift the same way you would any baby registry or wedding registry.
It's an Amazon wish list. It's the easiest thing in the world.
It goes directly to the family, not to me, and you can write a gift message. And so I want everyone to take advantage of that platform. Send a gift to one of our families. Tell them why you're doing it. Welcome them to America. And once you've signed up on our newsletter and you've sent a gift, then it's time to make a donation to Miry's List to keep the infrastructure growing, because we have enrolled 30 new arrival families since January 1st, 2020.
Wow.
30.
And guys, it's only the beginning of March, by the way.
Yeah.
When we're recording this, it's the beginning of March.
Yeah, we're 3 months into the year and we're 30 families enrolled. And so we are busier than ever, though the federal refugee resettlement system has been downsized significantly. We are still enrolling new families. They continue coming and they need our help more than ever. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share the story.
I adore you.
Me too. Let's get lunch.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. If you like what you hear, head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in and leave me a review. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at the Divorce Survival Guide. I'll see you next time, and until then, remember, you, my love, deserve to be happy.